So we're going to actually do a science lesson about space, actually about life in living in space. Okay? So before we get started, what I want you to do on a sticky note, and my helpers are going to help me pass out sticky notes, is pass out 2 sticky notes to each person. Okay? On the sticky notes, I want you to tell me one thing that you know about being in space, and one thing that you want to know, something that you're curious to learn about. One thing that you know and one thing that you want to know. Okay, go ahead, pass them out. So 2 sticky notes to each person, and I'm going to start here too. Yes, where are they living? Look at this astronaut. Look at this astronaut. Where do you think he is in this picture? He's floating, but boys and girls, make sure you raise your hand. Boys, I'm going to split you up in a second if you can't keep it together, okay? Let's see who's ready. This table is ready. This table is ready. This table is ready. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, thank you so much, is I'm going to give you a bunch of pictures. And they're actually in color, so that's pretty cool. So you're going to have to work with your group, okay? So you're going to get a group of photos, and you're going to get a little handout. In the handout, there are your vocabulary words. At the top of the next to each word is actually the definition. But you've got to match up the right word with the photo. Okay? So you have to figure out which photo is talking about which word. And then after you figure it out, you're going to write a sentence using that word. So for example, the first word is astronaut. I have to look through here and figure out which picture goes with the word astronaut. And then after I do that, I'm going to read the definition with my group. Astronauts are people who trained and travel and work in space. Then I'm going to have to come up with a sentence using the word astronaut. Who can give us an example of a sentence using the word astronaut or astronauts? Yes. Neil Armstrong was an astronaut. Very good. And he was the first person to walk on the moon, right? Great. Great background information. Okay? So work in your groups. This is a group activity, and I'm actually going to give you points based on how well you're working together. Okay? Okay, boys and girls. For actually all the groups. Are you ready? Hold up your photo for astronaut. Good, 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 good. All the groups got astronaut. Who would like to read the sentence they came up with? I'll read the definition. Astronauts are people who train and travel and work in space. Who would like to read their sentence? Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Astronauts have suits that protect themselves.
Good. Astronauts have suits that protect themselves. Maybe you want to add from outer space. Yes, go ahead.
Neil Armstrong was the first astronaut to walk on the moon.
Very good. Yes, go ahead.
Astronauts are people who study themselves.
Very good. Okay. Now hold up your photo for nozzle. Very good. Who would like to read? Who would like to read their sentence for the word for nozzle? A nozzle is a part at the end of a hose, boys. A part at the end of a hose pipe or tube that is used to direct and control a stream of liquid or gas. Who would like to read their sentence for nozzle? Yes, ma'am.
Nozzles are at the end of the hose.
Good. Nozzles are at the end of the hose. A hose. Who else would like? Did anybody else come up with a sentence for the word nozzle?
No.
Okay, not yet. Let's try orbited. Hold up your photo for orbited. Good. Good. Good job. Okay. Orbited. Revolves around another object. Who would like to read their sentence for orbited? And if you haven't written one down, but you thought of one in your head, you can share that too. Orbited. What's a sentence to go with orbited? Yes, ma'am.
The sun orbited around
The sun orbited around the earth. Oh, that's a good sentence. You know, many, many years ago, people believed that to be true. But actually now, what do we know?
I knew that. And then all this science discussion.
Raise your hands. Okay, boys. What is actually what we know now? Go ahead. Yes. Yes, you. That's right. The Earth orbits around the sun. But many, many years ago, people believed the sun orbited around the Earth. And now we found out it's actually the opposite of that.
Once I believed years ago, so that every planet orbited around.
Well, we have a galaxy that we live in. Does anybody know the name of our galaxy?
No.
That's right. And all the planets in our galaxy orbit around one thing.
The sun.
The sun. Good job. Okay, space station. Hold up your photo for space station.
Nice.
Yes. Correct. Yes. Sentences. Space station. I'll read the definition. A spacecraft in which people can live for a long time. Used for scientific experiments and research. Who would like to read their sentence of space station? I have two groups that keep raising their hands. So I'm going to choose some groups that maybe are not raising their hands.
Back corner behind you.
A sentence
Behind
for
you.
space station. Yes, ma'am.
A place for astronauts to research and to stay.
A place for astronauts to research and to stay. That's where they live. They live up there. They do scientific experiences. Good job. And technology. Hold up your photo for technology. Good job. Good job. Very nice. Good job. Who would like to read a sentence they came up with for technology? Yes, ma'am. Wow, did everybody hear her? She said we use technology to get information. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, last photo. Training. Training. Good job. It could be. So how many chose the photo of the woman working out for training? Okay. How many people chose the photo of the two astronauts underwater? Okay. So my thinking was this photo is for training, and this photo is for resistance. But if you chose this for training, that works too. It's still okay. It works too.
Look at it.
They work for both.
Okay. I need you guys. This is a fun group activity, but I need you to listen. Go ahead.
Okay, so I know why that is for training because underwater it's like you're floating, and in space you're floating.
Exactly. They train underwater because there's not a lot of gravity underwater, and it helps them train and prepare so that when they're in space, they can be able to move their muscles in the same way. And why did I choose this one for resistance? Resistance. What does resistance mean? Yes, ma'am. Yeah, because she's working out. Have you ever heard of resistance training? That means when it's hard, that's when you build muscle. Right? You're resisting it. That's exactly right. Okay?
So this is in water. How many of you have ever been in a swimming pool? Do you move faster or slower in a swimming pool?
Faster.
Who said? Okay, so raise your hand if you say faster. Why do you say faster? What example can you give me that you were moving faster in water?
Because when you're swimming, you use your arms to move forward.
Who says you move slower? Why?
The water slows you down.
So think about your two words. Resistance and training. Does the water actually help you go faster or slower? So it actually is resistant. So as I'm listening to your conversation, I'm like, wait a minute, time out, you're both right.
That's right.
Both will
It
work.
depends on how you argue your point. And as long as you can provide evidence, you've made a good argument, a sound argument.
Even in elementary school, because if you can provide evidence from the picture, then you're fine. That's what we're trying to teach them at the elementary school level now. What's common core
I
in
like it.
Some people do exercises that are all in pools. So it's like if you're standing on the ground and you have to do this with your legs, you can do it real fast. But if you're standing in water this deep and you have to do this with your legs, you can't go very fast, right?
Yeah.
So actually that works out your muscles a lot.
It's like pushing you back like
That's right.
That's resistance.
Okay, it's the resistance. Good
But that
job.
is also training.
That's right. So I know we might not be done with making our sentences, but I have a short video I want to show you before we actually start reading our books. So what I want you to do is go ahead and take your photos and your definition packet and move it to the side. You can keep your book in front of you. Everything else, go ahead and put it in the middle of the table. And we're going to show just a brief video.
The International Space Station orbits the Earth every 90 minutes, traveling about 17,500 miles per hour. It's an understatement to say the astronauts and cosmonauts on board enjoy a spectacular view. But daily life in lower Earth's orbit is hard work, and at times complicated. Even getting clean is a challenge. No shower here. Instead, they use towels, wipes, and a rinseless shampoo.
And I take my no-rinse shampoo and rub it in. Again, kind of working it out to the ends.
On board this $100 billion research laboratory, there are never more than 6 crew members at a time. They stay for about 6 months, which can feel like an eternity living on pre-packaged food.
We use a lot of the same items the military uses, the meals ready to eat, the MREs.
Every so often, supply ships, like the one that exploded this week, bring fresh fruit and vegetables.
Around our dinner table, this is a table for 6. We don't have plates. Of course, we don't need plates in space because, again, everything would just float away.
There are no refrigerators in space, and salt and pepper only in liquid form. Otherwise, the particles would be airborne, clogging air vents or getting in an astronaut's eye. Peanut butter on a specially packaged tortilla is a space station staple.
A weightless tortilla. Okay, we got one tortilla. Whoa, got away.
Most of the day is spent working on science experiments that only a microgravity environment can provide. There are also medical experiments, which can judge how well their bodies adjust to life in space for long periods of time. Of course, sometimes there are spacewalks. Otherwise, it's more mundane stuff, like what you might do at home back on Earth.
If you got to change out some filters or you got to, light bulbs burned out, you got to go take time to go change the light bulbs out.
And while you may be weightless in space, exercise is a must, using equipment you won't find on Earth, like this treadmill.
We attach, by these rings, the harness to a system of hooks and bungee cord.
If you're wondering about a bathroom break during the day thanks to microgravity, using this tiny toilet isn't easy.
And of course, you do have your privacy. There's a little door.
Sleeping is easier, as long as the astronauts remember to tie down their sleeping bags. When the mission is complete, a Soyuz spacecraft brings them back to Earth. The return trip takes just 3.5 hours. Randy Kay, CNN, New York.
What's one thing that you learned from the video about life on the space station that you didn't know before? Something that you learned that you didn't know before, yes? You. Tiny toilet. What else did you learn that you didn't know before, sir?
There's treadmills.
There's what? Yeah. There's a special treadmill on the space station, yeah.
I learned that he would just fly all over the spaceship.
Yeah, that's why they have the special toilet, right? Yes, ma'am. What did you learn?
That they don't shower, they just use a shampoo thing.
Yeah, that they actually can't shower with water because the water would go everywhere. Yes, ma'am. What did you learn? Okay, if you remember, let me know. So we're going to look at our book now, okay? So now that we've learned some of our vocabulary words, we've watched a short video, and we've talked a lot about life in space, we're ready for our test. Yes, ma'am.
So that if you wanted to drink water, you just pour a little bit and you
Try to catch it in your mouth. Okay, so life in space. Now, as we're reading, I want to really talk about context clues. So if you open your books to page 4 and 5, everybody go ahead and open up to 4 and 5. I'm going to read the first 2 pages to you. You guys all have your pencils, right? Bless you. As I read the first, open your books to page 4 and 5. As I read the first 2 pages to you, with your pencil, I want you to underline a word that might be confusing, either to you or to maybe a younger reader. And then we're going to talk about how to understand that word within the context. Okay? So what did I just say? Who could repeat back for me what I just said? What are you going to do when I'm reading to you?
Behind you.
Who can repeat? Yes, ma'am.
You wanted us to highlight a word that you don't know or somebody doesn't know.
That's right. A word that might be confusing to you. And we're going to talk about how to understand that word in the context. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. You wake up just as the sun is rising. It takes a moment to untangle from the sleeping bag in the small space. Opening the door, you grab a handle and flip yourself over. With a gentle push, you fly from one end of the room to the other. Another crew member floats by, hands you some coffee, and says, "Good morning," in Russian. You thank him and yawn, tired because you haven't slept much. Your stomach isn't used to the lack of gravity yet, and you're incredibly excited. You're about to begin your first full day working aboard the International Space Station. You've trained for years, but even the simplest activities are difficult without gravity. It's almost as if you have to learn how to do them all over again. You won't head back to Earth for another 6 months, so you may as well get started. Who underlined some words on that first page that can share what those words are? Yes, ma'am. International, great word. Okay, so let's read that sentence again and see if we can try to understand what international means. You're about to begin your first full day working aboard the International Space Station. Does anybody have any idea what international might mean based on that sentence? International. Yes. Around the world. Okay. So international actually means the entire world space station. Every country can be part of the space station.
That's why they talk in Russian.
Yeah, there's some Russian astronauts there. Actually, it's a originally built by Russia space station. Okay? Anybody else highlight any other words that were maybe confusing to them on the first page? Yes, sir. No. Okay. So what I want you to do now, we're running out of time, so I really want you to practice this. I want you to read with to yourself, read quietly to yourself, page 5. As you're reading page 5, I want you to underline 1 or 2 words that are confusing to you. And then I'm going to give you a sticky tab. And I want you to write down the word and what you think it means in the context. Okay? So who can repeat back to me what I want them to do with page 5? What do I do? Yeah, go ahead.
To underline 1 or 2 words that are confusing, and then get a sticky note and you write down what you think it means.
Exactly. Good job. Okay, so go ahead and get started with your reading, and I'll pass out a sticky note. Okay. I know you guys might still be reading. Did anybody see a word on that page that was confusing to them? Okay. How were you able to understand your word? Share your word and then tell me how you figured it out. Cosmonaut. Good. Good job. How did you figure out that word?
Stanley, please come back to the office.
Good.
Stanley, please come back to the office.
So if a cosmonaut is from Russia, it says it right there, it's from Russia. What do you think a cosmonaut is?
I think cosmonaut is Russian for astronaut.
That's right. It's Russian for astronaut. But if you just understood that it's a person that goes to space from Russia, that's right too. That's the same, right? How many people saw the word cosmonaut and saw that it was really dark and looked in the back at the definition? Yep. If it's in really dark print, it's in the back on your definition page. But I'm glad you figured it out in the context. Good readers, boys and girls, don't get a dictionary every time they find a hard word. How many of you have ever read a long novel? Do you sit there with your book and the dictionary next to you looking up words? Good readers try to understand them within the context. Okay? So, I want us to wrap up. There's so much more we can read about in this book, but I want us to wrap up. So, I'm going to give you a sticky note, and I want you to write down either one or two things you learned today about life in outer space. Did you have a question? Okay. And then you can put that up here on our chart on what you learned today. Something that you didn't know before, okay? And then you can keep your that sticky note in your book. Go ahead and put it in your book, and we'll save that for the next time we continue the lesson, okay? So here's your sticky note to write down one thing that you learned. Put it in your book. Oh, questions. That's awesome. Did everybody get a sticky note? Sorry. You guys did such an excellent job. What did you say?